So, hello
Okay.
everyone. I'm Divya. I hope the audience has gained some valuable insights in the last 2 days. And welcome to the last session of the summit, Data Readiness as a Foundation for AI in Healthcare. The data at first, AI later perspective. As AI continues to reshape the healthcare, the success of any solution depends on the data that powers it. The data first, AI later movement emphasizes the critical importance of establishing a strong data foundation. In this session, we'll explore the strategies and the challenges of building data readiness and how a data first approach can accelerate AI driven automation. So, before we start with our session, Paul, I'd like to introduce the panelist and you as the moderator. So, Paul is certified professional facilitator and a file starter at Data First AI Later Movement, as well as a visionary founder of Collab. With over 20 plus years experience in facilitation, stakeholder engagement, organizational transformation, Paul brings deep expertise in driving collaboration and innovation in healthcare. He has co-founded Digital Health Portugal and has designed facilitated strategic events for Microsoft, Pfizer, PwC, and regional governments. Next, we have our speaker, Dr. Padmavathi Roy. She is a DXC Distinguished Technologist, Innovation Strategist, and Business Architect, and currently serves as a chair of Healthcare Forum at the Open Group. With extensive experience spanning over 2 decades in healthcare IT, organizational transformation, and agile program leadership, Dr. Roy brings deep expertise in driving innovation and interoperability in healthcare. She has led agile transformations, designed value stream mapping, and design thinking initiatives, and is a SAFe certified program consultant. And lastly, we have our speaker, Dr. Dipak Kalra. He has over 30 plus years experience leading more than 70 European projects focused on EHR requirements, semantic interoperability, data protection, and patient empowerment. Dr. Deepak is the president of the European Institute for Innovation through Health Data, a professor of health informatics, and former London general practitioner. Dr. Kalra is an expert in scaling the trustworthy use of EHRs for research, assessing the impacts on European health data space, identifying success factors for AI adoption. He's participated in EU Horizon 2020 IMI projects, including generation of real-world evidence in pregnancy, governance of patient-centric clinical trials, etc. And with that, Paul, I hand it over to you. You take it forward from here. Welcome you all.
Okay. Thank you so much, dear viewers. It's exciting to be here, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, according to the time zone where you're watching this. My name is Paul Nunesdea. This is my English author name, for I'm a Firestarter of the Health Data Forum, and I'm the facilitator of a global movement, Data First, AI Later. My work is focused on creating dialogue spaces where stakeholders can explore how data integrity and governance must come first. We want trustworthy and effective AI in healthcare for all. With me as co-host today, I have the pleasure, delighted to be co-hosting this session with Dr. Padmavathi Roy. Dr. Roy is a distinguished technologist and a new leader within the Data First AI Later movement. She brings deep expertise from the Indian health data ecosystem and also the UK ecosystem where she currently lives, particularly in data readiness, interoperability, and inclusion. And we are thrilled to have her helping to guide today's fireside conversation with Professor Dipak Kalra. Over to you, Padma.
Thanks a lot, Paul. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome our esteemed Professor Deepak Kalra. And it is very inspiring to share the stage with someone whose career has been dedicated to advancing and securing the interoperable health data use. And it's my absolute pleasure. Professor Deepak Kalra is a true pioneer in health informatics and trusted data ecosystems. And his work on data standards and governance has shaped much of how we think about secure health data use today. And Professor Kalra, with your distinguished career as Professor of Health Informatics at University College of London and President of the European Institute for Innovation through Health Data, you have been pioneering force in advancing electronic health records, semantic interoperability, and privacy compliant data sharing. Your work on standards like OpenEHR and FHIR, along with your contribution to European health data projects, perfectly embodies the data first ethos that we are championing here. And we are eager to draw on your expertise to explore how we can prioritize high quality and trustworthy data infrastructures before unleashing AI's full potential. And Professor Kalra, thanks a lot for joining us and going to
It's a
share
real
your
pleasure. It's a very fascinating topic, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Exactly. Before we put AI at heart of healthcare, we need to put first our heart at the data. That is what I believe. AI is only as trustworthy as the data behind it. So
Mm.
let us jump in, starting with our first topic on trusted research environments. A TRE is an infrastructure that forces us to get the data foundations right before we even think about the exciting AI applications. What are your thoughts, Professor Kalra, on how TREs can serve as a bedrock for ethical data driven research in this data first and AI later landscape?
Thank you. I think that they can play a very strong role, but there will be some limitations that we need to be honest about as well. So, one of the most important factors for reliable and trustworthy AI is that the training takes place on high quality and representative data. Representative data means getting data from the kind of healthcare locations where the AI is likely to be used. It's no good training AI on, let's say, New York middle class people and then going to a totally different part of the world and say the algorithm's logic is going to be fine for you, because it won't be. Because that means we have to be able to get healthcare data as close to the source as possible and make that available to AI developers. Now, close to the source means privacy anxieties, concerns. And a trusted research environment provides a lot of certainty to data sources to say if your data is going to be used, it will be placed, even if it is anonymized or pseudonymized, into a computing environment that is security robust, it is audit trailed, and there will be access controls that mean that only the people who have approved purposes will be able to access the data. There can be constraints on what they can do with the data, that they can maybe only analyze it, extract aggregated data. They can't download data to other places. And they're fully audited in what they do. Audit trails can be inspected, alerts can be raised. So, although it is a constraint on the data user, which could be the AI developer, it is a way of giving a huge amount of confidence that people with precious healthcare data can place it in that environment and be confident that it won't be misused. And we are seeing trusted research environments exploding around the world as one of the favored ways of data sharing and data access. A limitation that we just need to be honest about is a lot of AI analytics needs very large volumes of fine-grained data, and sometimes different research environments may be needed, not just the data in one TRE. For example, in Europe, we're looking at the fact that people will need to run queries on data in maybe several countries, especially if you're looking for weak signals, small variations in patterns, fine subpopulations on whom AI is going to do something valuable. Then you need to do multicultural analytics. And federated analytics, federated learning is difficult to do in a TRE. It
Mhm.
can be done, but they have to be designed for that purpose. And one of the things we're having to do in Europe right now is to push a little bit to those people who are setting these up and say, please don't forget the AI developers needing to do federated learning. Make sure you build in channels that will allow that to take place.
Yeah, so yeah, that's interesting. And also, the data from that TREs should not leave, as you mentioned.
No, it can't leave. It has to be analyzed in situ.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the data is airlocked there.
Yes, yes, good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And that's what gives the confidence.
exactly, that's what should give the confidence as well. And
Mm.
especially the patients or the public should not think that the data is being misused or something. That's what the pseudonymizing or
Yes,
anonymizing the data comes into the picture. So, drawing from
absolutely.
your experience with the European Institute for Innovation through Health Data, what are the key elements that make a trusted research environment which is truly trustworthy for handling sensitive health data? And how can we ensure they support ethical AI development without compromising patient privacy?
Mm. Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, you might think that the answer lies at the technology layer, but I
Mm,
don't think it does. I think it actually lies in the human and organizational layers. So, what matters is who is able to make data access requests.
mm,
How do they have to justify why they have a legitimate purpose, a purpose that is maybe part of an approved list of purposes? How does it get decided? What is the board or the committee that reviews proposals and says, yes, this is an acceptable purpose, it is a societal one? And then how do you set up the access controls, the governance rules, the audit trails? How do you inspect even the audit trails and make sure that what you expect to happen is happening with the data? So I honestly think that it's the human processes and the organizational governance that will be the deciding factor. If you were to go to people with strong information security skills and say, we've done all that work, we have precisely this requirement for safeguarding the data, I
mm.
think the ICT sector is pretty good at doing that. I don't think that we have to say, oh, the quality of the technology isn't robust enough. I actually think it is. I think our problem is how do we sort out decision making, transparency, accountability, those kind of things. And that's where, honestly, the policies and the codes and the rules are still becoming good. I wouldn't like to say they are great already. We are still improving them and making them better, consulting with patient groups, societal groups, with data protection experts to say, are you happy that we have got these rules right?
So here technology plays maybe a 20% role, but the culture and the governance, how we are putting the
Yeah.
structure, all those plays major 80% or something. And what challenges have you seen in implementing TREs for real world evidence generation, such as in clinical trials, and how might we address scalability issues to build the high
Yeah.
quality historical data sets?
So, I mean, I mean, there has not yet been a large amount of AI machine learning.
Hmm.
So I can't give you that experience and say we've learned these things from the AI community. AI community is just getting started on these architectures. But what we have seen, you mentioned clinical trials, you know, real world evidence studies and clinical trials. One of the problems, if we took, for example, a pharmaceutical company or a tech company that's running a big study, is they will often have data they've already got. And they want really to merge data that's in a TRE with other data they've already got, but they're not allowed to take it out. So they actually can't do those kind of things. And so what we see is the limitation at the moment is that it's difficult for them to really make a sort of a fusion of multiple data sources. And I think that is a limitation. The other limitation is that actually a lot of the data they need is ideally linked data. If you think of a patient who is under a general practitioner and a hospital. Maybe over a 5-year period, they've moved house, they've got 2 hospital records and 2 or 3 GP practice records, but between them, they cover the different diseases the patient has got.
Yes.
Any one location only really has data about one of the diseases. If you want to look at a holistic case of a patient, you really want to bring together the data from multiple places. And then you need to say, well, the TRE is a place to deposit, but where do you do the linkage? How do you take 5 data sets that have been provided by different people and work out which of these records are the same person, the same patient, and create that fusion of their records? I mean, it can be done. that's not a new science. Linkage is a very old ability, but linkage within TREs introduces a new layer, again, of organizational complexity, permissions complexity, that adds to the challenge. So I think what we've seen is that TREs have had limited use today, unfortunately, because of some of these pragmatic limitations. But they're all soluble. Every one of them is soluble. I'm not describing things that can't be addressed. They just are not often addressed. And I think if we regard the TRE as an expanding resource, then we've got to address them so that we can really deliver value to the very, very desperate insight needing community, the people doing research, the people doing innovation, because for many of those organizations, getting hold of the right data is one of their biggest obstacles.
Absolutely. So, data readiness sounds very straightforward, but in reality, it is not. Because in real world, the clinical data is scattered everywhere, right? There are into various EMRs, and data is unstructured, structured. Some of the data is structured and fragmented. And what, in your view, are the top 2 or 3 critical components of making data truly AI friendly, and how do we do that?
Well, I mean, one of those is going to be integration. So the use of interoperability standards. Do we need to invent the right interoperability standards? I don't think so. I think we have a lot of interoperability standards, but if you look at most systems deployed in healthcare today, they actually don't support the use of standards. So the problem is not standards development, it's standards adoption. And of course, because there is more than one set of standards, there might be different standards used by different products. So the standards bodies still have to do more work about harmonizing and aligning their standards. But really, the big barrier is getting the standards embedded within products. That's partly a procurement issue, and it's partly a budget issue. I think developers would know how to implement them, but they tell me they don't feel a strong market pull. In other words, that they could spend money making systems more interoperable, but the customers are not demanding it. They wouldn't be willing to pay for it. So there is a market mismatch that has to be addressed. But even if we could join up the records, do we have good quality data to join? And here I think that's the second question is the data of a quality? You referred to coding and other things. I mean, still a large volume of clinical data is captured in free text.
Yeah.
So we have to recognize that actually the data that often is quite interesting for AI machine learning is the subtle clues about a patient, the sort of personalized characteristics, which don't easily go onto a template. So they're not in the structured form, they're sitting in the free text, which is giving you added info. And that's the info that developers need. So what do we do? So we've got 2 or 3 choices. One choice is that we hit all clinicians on the head and say, you're not making enough effort on data entry. But I think that's unreasonable because I think many of them are quite hard pressed for time. Do we give them systems with stunning user interfaces, making it easy to do structured data entry? Not really. I don't think the majority of clinicians would feel that. So we're not really enabling the anticipatory capture of well-structured, well-formulated entries. But then what do we do with the legacy? We've got huge volumes of free text. Can NLP, natural language technologies, help us to get out the gold from within the gold plus the sand? Can we extract what we're looking for? And I think that those technologies are getting better and better. And here is another AI thing. What we are seeing now is a branch of health AI, which is not trying to look at clinical issues, but look at data issues. So is it possible? And we're involved in some projects saying, look, if a patient has this health condition, then I would expect certain things to be reported in the narratives, in the discharge summaries of the letters. So using AI to be selective about what it might look for means it can be a bit smarter in hunting in the narratives for the gold, because it kind of knows what might be plausible to look for. And I think that really will help. But we have to, I mean, these technologies are available. Again, they're not stunning, but they're getting pretty good. Are they in much use? Well, they're in use in experimental environments, in high-resourced hospitals that have a big budget. They can use them, but the vast majority of clinical sites around the world are well behind that capability. So we need to incentivize somehow the scale-up adoption of these solutions.
Yeah. And today, a patient data not only lives in the EMRs or EHRs or a lab system or a PACS imaging archive, they can also be in the patient generated data into various health apps and telemedicine apps as well. So, how do we solve this interoperability puzzle in practice? Um, do you think standards like FIRE is a complete answer, or
Well,
there are
I think
cultural and organizational barriers to true data sharing?
Well, I think in terms of the standards, FIRE is an important step. It's not complete on its own because there are semantic areas that are a little bit beyond the scope of FIRE. So it's about FIRE plus other standards and also documentation practices. The shape of the information objects that are captured need to be agreed. And there's therefore a bit of clinical consensus that is needed to also work on the patterns of data that they actually want to use. But I think it's worth doing because patient generated data is going to provide us with a massive boost in the data we get. Plus, if we are asking AI to find things out, substratify patients to help us with the fine grained issues that are decision making dilemmas, we kind of can guess that the magic answers are probably not already in the EHR because we might have found them. So we actually do need data that's close to the patient, captured maybe much more frequently by patients than it would be by a clinician. So we can get closer to the real individuality of people and move towards personalized medicine that is AI supported. So we do have to do those things. But also, I think we have to put a lot of pressure on quality assurance of apps and devices. Because the last thing we want is that the mess we have allowed for the last couple of decades with EHR systems being, almost randomly structured and organized, having minimal standards adoption, we're about to see an explosion of the personal health record space, replicating all of our foolishness. And so we really need to be proactive with the development community for these personal health systems, get them to be quality assured so the patients are safe, and get them to be interoperable by design. So we don't proliferate the mess we've already got, but we actually narrow it down and say patient generated data can be combined. It will need to be combined because if a patient has 3 diseases, they could easily have 3 apps, and those apps have to talk to each other. So we have to have this interoperability.
Yeah. Exactly. So when you are talking about the legacy EHRs versus we need to have kind of an EHR which gives a lot of importance to protecting the data and also the compatibility of interoperability. In that view, what do you think the way for open EHR kind of systems versus legacy systems uh, with respect to the enablement for AI in the future?
Well, I mean, one of the things I've always liked about OpenEHR is its invention and use of the archetype. So an archetype is a clinical pattern. It's a documentation pattern that says when clinicians are using a more generic model that can hold all kinds of data, these are the ways in which they will document. So the archetype captures, if you like, clinical agreement. But we also have to remember it doesn't make clinical agreement, it captures it. If a bunch of clinicians, if all the cardiologists in a city don't agree with each other, then they can all make their own archetypes and have incompatible data. It doesn't force humans to agree, but it provides a way of capturing agreement. And we still have a lot of work to do as a clinical community, an informatics community, to work on agreed patterns of documentation. So we capture the data in systematically similar ways, so that the context and the nuances of the patient are represented always in the data in a similar way. That gives a consistency to the AI developer that they badly need.
And also reduces the time for data.
Oh, hopefully, yes, you're
Yeah.
right. I didn't think of saying that, but that's a great point. Yes,
Yeah, we have
you're
to be
right.
cautious of the time here, dear
Oh,
colleagues. Yes, we have to open the floor for our viewers here, and then
okay.
we'll jump to the final conclusions if that's okay. Let's see, because we have here some interesting questions that we can bring here to your attention here. Let's say this one here, for instance, by Dr. Amira. What do you believe the most critical aspect of data readiness that healthcare organizations often overlook when implementing AI?
Wow. Well, I think there's a pair. One of them is the quality that we've discussed already. I won't repeat all that, but I think the data has to be of a sufficient quality that it actually is usable and its interpretation is reliable. But the second thing, and especially for AI, is inclusivity. That's a word that we were discussing before. But inclusivity of people, that the data has to represent the population on whom the AI might be used. And there are many underserved populations who are poorly reflected in the data. And they could be poorly reflected because they don't seek healthcare, or because their data is put in free text, or they attend less well-resourced centers with less sophisticated EHR systems, or because clinicians don't necessarily document as thoroughly. I know that sounds a bit provocative, and I don't have the evidence for that last remark, but I do have anecdote that people tell me that there is if you like, a clinical documentation bias.
Yeah.
And we need to recognize that if that's occurring, the AI is going to be biased in what it does, which is going to leave it actually quite dangerous. Now, bias is not a showstopper. It doesn't mean because there is bias, you can't use the data, but it means you have to apply corrections to the data.
Absolutely. I think to adding to your comment,
Yeah.
Professor, so widely used AI algorithm, I just want to draw the attention to the widely used AI algorithm in US hospital that was designed to identify patients who would benefit from extra care management. That is, it used healthcare cost as a proxy for health needs. So by doing that, it understood that the black population are suffering with or need less cost because they are not suffering with the diseases that white population are suffering. So that AI understood in that sense. So we need to remove, as you rightly mentioned, we need to remove the bias.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there are some interesting questions here that we can bring. I like this particular one. In your
So,
opinion,
Paul, are you happy to read it out, Paul? Because I think I
yes,
can't
sure.
read them easily myself. Thank you.
I will do that momentarily, Dipak. Don't worry. In your opinion, how should healthcare organizations balance the investment in AI technologies with the foundational need for data quality, infrastructure, and governance?
Whoa, that's a holy
Yeah.
grail question. Do you want to answer it? Or
No,
shall
you
I?
go ahead. You go ahead, please.
Okay. Well, I think actually, to be quite honest, this is really where the movement, data first, AI later, comes in. And I think it may be important to say here that, I think the movement doesn't believe that AI should just go away for 10 years sit on the beach and relax, do nothing useful, and come back in 10 years when we've sorted the data out. It's not that aggressive a message, but the message is that the priority has to be to invest in good data. I mean, there is enough good data that some AI can be developed. We don't have to start with a desert of none. But the real value to healthcare, the real richness of the complexity, I mean, making AI in place to solve problems where the data is good probably are not the hottest priorities for healthcare. Healthcare needs AI in places where it's difficult to make wise clinical decisions, where a group of patients, I mean, I've got examples. I mean, I'm involved in a project in cardiomyopathy, and the diagnosis of cardiomyopathy in young, healthy people can be very difficult to make because an active sports person will also sometimes have an enlarged heart. So the heart can be enlarged for two reasons, a good reason and a harmful reason. One carries no health risk, one carries a very severe health risk. But how does the clinician, the cardiologist, a cardiomyopathy specialist distinguish the two? They really struggle. Even with all the tests and diagnostic tools, they can find it difficult to get that right. And we know that AI, by analyzing large volumes of very fine-grained, precise data, could find some signals that have so far eluded us. But that means the data's got to be pretty good and pretty why comprehensive? Because we don't know, out of all the cardiovascular data about these patients, which are the data items that are going to be relevant to weak signal detection. So all the data has to be good. And that's really what has to happen. We can't invent this kind of AI if the data is not there. So that is why the incentives have got to go towards the data first, to bring it up to a level where we can have AI flourishing. It doesn't mean don't start working now on AI, but it means we know, dear AI community, you will struggle to cover the landscape of where health needs you to be because health is going to let you down on the data. That's what I think we need to recognize.
That's really inspiring. Great comment, Dipak. Padma, would you like to add something as we are going to approach the final part of our session and we need to wrap up for a conclusion?
Gosh, time goes so quickly, doesn't it?
Especially if you are standing.
Yeah, so AI in healthcare is really very exciting, right? But the real innovation is getting the data right, as we have been talking since the beginning of this session. The right data will get into the system and then will give right outcomes. Data readiness is not the back office work, it is the foundation of trust, safety, and transformation. Then only the true transformation and benefit to the humanity, benefit to the clinicians, as well as the world can come forward. Also, if we want to AI to change the healthcare, we must first change how we manage our data. The cleaner, the fairer, and the more connected. Data first, AI later should be the approach. It is data first, AI later is not a slogan, but it is a roadmap that we all need to follow.
Oh, well said. I mean, you've summed that. That was the summing up, I guess, Paul. That was a beautiful way of capturing the essence.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And but before you go, dear viewers, we have to do it. We have still time for showing up our website where you can join the movement Data First, AI Later. It's a website that you can actually follow, and please subscribe to our movement as we are now starting to create initiatives that will be in service of everybody. So it's Data First, AI Later, and anyone is welcome to join and subscribe our mailing list as we are just starting this movement.
Brilliant. And a really, really important message, a very important movement.
That was a great, engaging session. Thank you to our panelists for such a rich discussion and the audience for being here, asking them questions which wanted answer from Dr. Kalra. So what we heard is that trusted research environments play a critical role, ensuring that the data remains at secure, auditable, representative. And the clear takeaway is that we need not prioritize we have to prioritize high quality structured, interoperable data before we apply any AI solutions. And technology isn't just enough for this. We need governments, we need policies, collaboration with right stakeholders, which can ensure that this AI is reliable and scalable. So it was a great session. Thank you all, and see you all next year. This is the last session for the summit this year.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, and thank you for inviting.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Bye.